Welcome back to Gray Squadron Gaming. I'm Joe. This is Don. And we brought Will Squared.
Woo! What's up, folks?
We got Will Shick and Will Pagani. I'll let them introduce themselves to those who don't know who they are.
I'm Will Shick. I'm the VP of Creative Direction and Strategy for Atomic Mass Games.
I'm Will Pagani, the development director at Atomic Mass Games. I got it right this time.
You did.
Did it.
Nailed it. It's
You
sad that
guys,
you couldn't even
you
get it
guys
right
know your roles now and
yesterday when you
everything.
had the literal title screen under you that you could read.
You had a teleprompter and you messed it up?
He
Pagani.
did. He did. He couldn't even get it right yesterday when it was right in front of him. It's
Oh,
very
man.
sad.
Well, you guys did have a little bit of news dropped yesterday, which was really exciting for us Legion
Just,
players
just a
to
couple little snippets.
look at that. Figure we just jump in and start going questions. First off, you guys kicked it off. We'll kind of go in order. The points updates. Overall, almost all point drops across the board. Couple point increases, but more than not point drops. Um, and the biggest question that I got from our Discord was around Mall, CIS Mall, Shadow Collective Mall, good point drops. What led you to that, Pagani? Like, where did you think he needed to go down? Significant. I think it's what, 10, 15 each, roughly?
He was 15 for Separatists and 20
Ah, yeah,
for
15, 20.
Shadow Collective. Yeah. Um, I don't think there were any particular things on him where I was like, well, that's not performing or whatever. It was just sort of as we are going through the game, we are assessing various commanders and operatives and stuff and seeing where they are lying inside the game. And you notice we had like Asajj came down a ton. We've had some other operatives drop a ton, a ton, a ton. And the idea is that we liked where that's going. Let's keep doing it, right? Let's go find characters where we can drop them for points, and that will get them to where they need to be. And then there are other characters where we're like, well, these aren't as exciting as they necessarily could be, so maybe we need to look a little deeper for that kind of stuff. So those are why some characters haven't gotten drops. And this is not saying that if your character has not gotten drops, it's going to get changes or anything like that in the future. But it's that sort of the philosophy here is that we think Maul, both versions of Maul are very interesting and do very different things that are exciting. And we can address any sort of balance or efficiency issues with points rather than changes.
And because of the great mall show out now, you just really wanted people to put them on the table
Got to
again.
do it.
So
Got to do it.
I
I
agree.
mean, it was
Actually,
timely.
I will
yeah.
admit I have not seen that yet, but it is on my list to
What
watch very
what
soon.
is wrong
I
with
know,
you,
I know,
sir?
I
The
know. I've been
animation,
traveling a
so
lot.
good.
It's been rough.
He didn't want to be unfairly biased, and suddenly have to change things at the last minute and then be told no because licensing doesn't have time to get it approved. And it's
That's
better to be
fair.
Like,
excited
we'll blame
after. You
Matt.
want
That's why.
you want him to burn up with the envy of I wish I could have changed it because then he'll just be more aggressive next time.
I like it. I
Yeah,
like it.
makes sense. I like the trend of we're seeing more and more hero characters, if you will, operatives,
Mhm.
commanders come down in points or upgrades, which we'll talk about here in a second. But Aiden also, she herself didn't get a buff, but she kind of did because her ID Secret Droid is free now, which is great. Same kind of logic behind that one, Pagani, or did you guys look at something with her and was like, she just needs a little bump?
So that was sort of we want the cool stuff to be there, and we want you to take this cool, unique droid that is super sweet. So take the cool droid that's super sweet, right? Like
Yeah, makes
we
sense.
we want we make these things and we develop these things for them to be used. And when we see something that's not being used at all, then we're going to look at that. And sort of the idea was like, well, is this worth 5 points? Is this worth 10 points? Well, Iden could probably come down a little bit. Like, what if we just make the droid free? Is that a good enough package now? And it turned out that the answer was we think so, yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be nice.
Yeah, her with the
yes,
ISFs
we
coming down
really
is going to
want.
be a nice combo on the board.
Yeah.
I think there's also a really important question to ask that is, we talk a lot about list building opportunities and player choices, but then there are things within the Star Wars galaxy or with characters where should it even be a choice, right? Like, should this be something that players are having to decide over? And really, when we looked at it from a story perspective and what you expect from the character, ID10 and her are so intertwined within the experience of the game, especially that it didn't make sense to us that she would ever go to battle without ID10
Hmm.
because they're always together, right? It's kind of a similar argument to when if you were to look at Cal Kestis, do you ever expect him to be without his little droid buddy, right? And so sometimes I think we look at decisions and say maybe that wasn't the best implementation to tell the story or to, again, we're trying to make a great game, but what we're trying to make a great game that feels like Star Wars on the tabletop, that allows for players to recreate, moments from the media that they love. And you kind of want to make sure that players don't feel forced into decisions that don't feel authentic. And with ID10 especially, there were a lot of reasons for it, but I think another really good contributing factor was just when she didn't have ID10, it didn't quite feel like the Aiden experience that I as a player or other people as players maybe would want or expect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, and you guys went from points into new battle forces. And I gotta say, I like the trend. We got the 212th a little bit ago, which was a very
Mhm.
vehicle-centric battle force. Now we're getting the Naka Gang and the um,
Rapid interdiction.
The rapid
Rapid Interdiction.
interdiction.
Thank you. I wanted to say the really fast CIS one, but that wasn't the correct
That would
name.
have we would have understood.
That
It's
was
like
that was
basically the
probably
same
the original
letters.
name, but it just didn't flow as well as rapid interdiction for us.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're both
I
really heavy on the heavies, if you will, no pun intended.
yeah.
What was the inspiration for that, and how does it when you guys got to playtest these four tanks? I can't wait for the channel to try out the four tank one, just to be honest. That's crazy.
Yeah, so the Honda one specifically, the tanks, that was born from a very early concept that we had when we first developed the Weequays for first edition Legion. And at the time, I know we've talked before about how the Weequays were kind of the first big unit that we ever made, thinking that they would be released into first edition Legion and somehow that would be okay. We were quickly proven wrong. And so they kind of sat on the shelf. But another one of the wild concepts that we had when we were working on them was the idea that you could not take the unit without taking the tank and vice versa. Like they just came as a package. When you bought the unit, you got a tank and you got the unit of Weequays. We walked away from that for several reasons. Some of them were product related and like, do people really want to have to get a tank every time they want a unit? Can they be used separately if they're always used together? Like, does this really function in a nice, like, player friendly way? And then also just from a game balance perspective. But when we started working on the raiding battle force, the Anaka gang, as it came to be called, we kind of went back to that concept and we said, okay, well, they've got to have their pirate, they got to have their pirate hoopties to hop out of, raid, throw the loot on, and get out. So let's explore that idea where we very closely connect the units to the Welos. And that kind of formed the core of the force, and then a lot of things happened around it that I'm sure Pagani will love to talk about that turned it into the battle force that we have before us today, minus some command cards that went missing, but will be available probably next week when we pry them from the greedy tight grip of Hondo Anaka himself.
You're gonna have to pay a lot of credits for those, I think.
Probably. That's just good business though.
It's
He's
true.
he's a respected businessman.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean this battle force went through a lot of stuff. At one point, you could take an unlimited number of heavies, and that got out of hand
Jesus, you
very quickly.
monster.
That got out of hand very quickly. There were a lot of things. This was a really fun one to work on because it really let us kind of go crazy and just do some weird stuff, and try out a lot of things. And some of it made it, some of it didn't. We really liked tying the units to the tanks, so you have to take one unit of pirates for every tank, and then they have to be transported by it. And I think that's really fun and like really thematic and interesting. As Shick kind of alluded to in the announcement stream, we're not entirely certain this is going to be like a great competitive choice, but I guarantee you you'll have a good time.
I mean,
So, and that's just as important as competitive viability in my mind
Mhm.
is some
yeah.
people will play this and just have a hoot and holler and great time, and some people will try and optimize and do those things, and hopefully they have a great time too. So,
It,
If you don't
it's
bring up an
especially
impact, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble.
yep, yep.
Yeah, I mean, also if you run against a canny player, I mean, the fact that your entire army's courage kind of commander bubble is based around what pip you've played, right? Like you can have the most inviolable army of scalawags ever, and then you play that one pip, and it's like, well, everyone's running. So, whoops, wrong time.
Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah, there's and the command cards for the thing are pretty wild. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of counts as pip stuff going on.
Ooh,
So that'll be fun.
we're excited to see that for sure. And
Hopefully,
then
yeah, hopefully it does out there soon.
for when you create battle forces, just in general, how do you decide like which battle forces get command cards, or is it just kind of the theme of the battle force, or because some have command cards, some just have abilities?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the battle force needs, right? Like for the Onaka gang, we knew that they were going to get the generic mercenary cards, but there weren't a lot of other cards for them, right? You have Hondo specific ones, but that didn't quite get us the full feeling that we really wanted from all this kind of stuff. So that was like a big key, and it's like, hey, we need to make some command cards that make this feel truly unique and different and very flavorful for what it is. Whereas a lot of the other ones for specific factions or things like that don't necessarily need that kind of stuff because they have that support through either the characters included or the generics for their faction or things like that. So it really just depends on what we need for to feel right in the force, right? Or I guess there is also a power level consideration as well, but it's mostly a is there a hole that needs to be filled? Great.
Yeah, makes sense. And then you have
Yeah.
the I call it the oops all wheel bikes battle force as well, with Grievous and the bikes coming at you. It's nice and speed.
Mhm.
Introducing a brand new unit inside that battle force, which I'm a big fan, by the way, of exclusive units in battle forces. I think it really gives them more flavor. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing more of that.
Absolutely. Same idea there as well, right? Like when the battle force requires a specific unit, that's when they get the specific
Mhm.
unit.
Some fixie bugs jumping around, moving all over the board. Sounds fun.
Yeah, free repair one when you can move 3 times is pretty easy to get to your thing you're trying to fix, right?
It's
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
good. Yeah. And that battle force, kind of similar to the pirate one, started with a very out there concept where it was just all wheel bikes. I mean, that was it. You didn't have any core units. You didn't have the Geonosians to start. You didn't have the BX droids, but that quickly broke down because of all the reasons that you need core units, or some kind of like, trooper unit rather than just vehicle units and things like that.
Not a whole lot of
Um,
people are going to have 9 or 10 units of wheel bikes.
I mean, they might have, but as we found, it wasn't a very effective force. You often lost a lot of points very quickly, or couldn't engage with certain scenarios, or like primaries or secondaries.
Makes sense.
But I think, the fun part about the battle forces is that we get to start big on a concept and really just throw out all the rules and then see if we can innovate our way around those. And then we learn a lot I think we learn more about the game and how it functions doing battle forces oftentimes than we do when just creating new releases, because we can really push the limits of what the engine itself can handle. And sometimes we figure out really innovative ways around those limitations, and sometimes we realize that they are very hard limitations and we have to pull back.
You
But
have
in
to have a
doing
non
so, yeah, in doing so, we wind up with so much great information and so many good ideas that we can then implement in the future, or ways in which we can push the envelope and stuff going forward. So battle forces are always, I think, one of the most fun things that the development team ever gets to do. And they're great because, you can have a Dallas Kemp who doesn't really care about game balance at all come in and say, where's my ability to take all of these cool wheel bikes I just made? Like, why don't I have this yet?
I can
And
imagine Dallas coming up with some fairly interesting ideas.
he's had two. He wanted the wheel bikes. I agreed with him on the wheel bikes. He will not go gentle into the good night of he wants an all do back force.
No,
So nothing but do backs. That one has been coming up for the last 5 years, and we'll
Can we
see.
can we sponsor it with Mountain Dew? Is that going to
I
be
mean,
possible?
maybe,
Oh,
maybe.
now we're talking.
do the do.
Baja Blast upgrade.
Oh man.
Oh, that sounds great.
No, yeah, the battle forces are great. I like when they're timed, especially around new units. The wheelbikes just came out, the tanks coming
Mhm.
out. Here's some new battle forces. You can play with them separately or with them. It's great pairing. It gives people variety to play with these new units and see
Hmm.
them. So
It's
kudos
also
on
really good for us to kind of narrow down on all of the different ideas that we have, right? Being able to kind of center them around things that are new or exciting within the overall community or the release schedule. Because there's a lot of stuff, I know a lot of people are like Scarif Battle Force, right? Where's the Rogue One Battle Force and that kind of stuff. And I'm sure we'll get there, but there's also that consideration of we only can do so many of these, and is that going to have as much impact as something else at the time that is centered around something that people are very hype about, very excited about, coming to the game? Because at the end of the day, if we can get that synergy between game rules, new product releases, and sometimes a little bit of like meta bending stuff in there, it's always like a great combination. It's a great time to play around with everything.
Yeah, no, it's a great time to kind of whirlwind and throw things away. Even like you said, even if the Hondo Nako game is not like meta breaking, it's going to counter some lists, and people are going to have to adjust to that, right? It's going
Yeah.
to.
Gonna
So
be
it's
a
going to
good
be
time.
excited to see. You guys
Yeah.
also threw a nice wrench in it in a good way for the strike teams. Got completely reworked in a great way, and I just had a couple questions on that. One is what led to that, and then kind of more pinpoint question would be when we were playing them last night, we noticed that all the snipers are the same. So, each sniper before had different dice pool and they had surging, non-surging. So now you kind of made them all uniform, at least the sniper gun itself, right? Across them. So what led to those decisions?
Um, so the price of the sniper heavy weapon was kind of the original lead, and how can we make strike teams appropriately costed while also not breaking the larger unit? Because there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, just take Echo and drop him 20 points. Like the math will not support that for output and stuff. So we had a lot of discussions about, well, how do we address this? Should we just make them strike team only? Should we change the weapon to work in some different way, which is obviously the direction that we ended up going with it, right? How should we do these kind of things? Should we not worry about this at all and just be like strike teams or whatever? They can just not really exist in the game at the moment, and that's fine. So we had a lot of different discussions about it, and the one that ended up winning out was how can we make something that really feels like a sniper team, that is exciting to play, that gives sort of a new thing to the game that didn't really exist before. And how can we do that while also sort of validating the other unit as well, right? Because like Rebel Commandos are not a particularly popular unit. So how can we increase their popularity? Oh, well, if we take the sniper rifle and make it really juiced in that unit, then great. Is that what we want? Not really, right? Because then that leaves the strike team behind. So by creating, and I think this is also combined with the charges and that kind of stuff, the saboteur charges that all got changed and
Yeah.
stuff. Um, we were able to kind of revitalize these units in different ways, which is sort of addressing, I think in the last update, we talked about how we wanted to look at special forces and their efficiency and things like that. That's kind of where all of this came from, was that kind of stuff. So by creating these very unique strike team options with a new sniper rule that have some very thematic and fluffy situations that you can get into, we can also then hit the other unit as well with saboteur charges and kind of hit both at once to do that kind of stuff. And at this point, I don't think this is a secret to anyone that the Pierce keyword is kind of something that we are very keenly watching, and how it's applied and where it exists and that kind of stuff, because it can create some very non-interactive situations where I just roll some dice and then you don't get any saves and your guys die. And it doesn't matter what that guy is. Is it an Ewok? Great. Is it an invincible, impossible to kill ARC Trooper with Obi-Wan? Not this time because he's immune to Pierce, but every other time they're good. So I think that interaction is something that we're trying to avoid. And the math working out on 2 or 3 dice pools with Pierce 1 usually means you're almost for sure getting 1 guy. You're probably getting 2 guy, and every once in a while you're getting 3 guys. So this really takes that top end of 3 and 2 and obviously just cuts it off entirely and says, hey, you can only ever cap out at 1. So whatever you're shooting, that better be worth 1 wound if you're going to use the sniper rule. So that was kind of the idea, is how we can sort of mitigate the power of Pierce on smaller die pools and things like that, especially with Sharpshooter, which a lot of these units had as well. So I don't know.
And it was
Oh,
also
well.
about, I mean, it was also about talking about uninteractive, right? Obviously, the sniper rule just does auto damage. You can't stop it.
which
But
is
to get
which
to
is
that
not
point,
interactive, to be clear.
yeah. But to get to that point, there's a lot of interaction, right? Like you have to position properly. You do roll dice. The dice do matter, right? And then you have to make a decision as a player. Do I want to take, if you roll hot and you roll, 3 crits, do you want to drop those crits to get one guaranteed damage, or are you going to let your opponent roll some dice and see if the force wills it, if you will, that you're going to come out on top? And those decision points are what really make the games fun, right? Taking risks as a player, not taking risks as a player, like analyzing the situation. That's kind of the war game experience in a nutshell, right? Like this is why we make lists, and why we love list building and theory crafting, and we'll talk about our games afterwards because those decision points need to matter. But with the old snipers, you rolled the dice and then this thing kind of happened, and did it really matter? And so I think for us, it was a lot about injecting that player agency back and letting you as the player choose your own adventure and how this was going to go out. And that did a lot of things to make the sniper teams much more engaging, much more exciting, um, from just a play standpoint. And I think it made them function in a way that we felt was very healthy and fit with our vision for where we wanted the game in general to be and where we want it to go.
Yeah, and we can definitely confirm we did film our battle report last night. So we had three of the new teams on the board, and they definitely feel much more different than they used to. And it does put you in a lot of situations. Like I had my BX sniper team, and when you're in range three, it's like, ooh, do I want to roll four whites and a black search to hit sharpshooter, or do I want to roll two blacks and a red with the potential of just doing the wound wound? So it did put me into some places where I had to think about whether I wanted the full dice pool or not. It
Mhm.
is also fun that you're like you can't just hide your spotter behind cover anymore,
That was a
Yep.
good change, by the way.
and that really makes it feel like yeah, I kind of want to keep them alive, but I also want to be able to
Mhm.
do the cute cool thing with the upgrading dice and the ability to do a crit. So it makes them much more entertaining and fun to play with instead of just the all right, I'm gonna roll my two dice and you're probably gonna get one pierce one. All right,
Yep.
bye.
Yep.
And I think the other thing that really sold it for us as we were working on it was when we started to see these really cagey sniper duels that felt like they were right out of like, the movies, right? To where the players were almost squaring off because they would counter deploy their sniper teams and they were like, who's going to blink first? Are you going
Yep.
to shoot?
Right.
Because you shoot, I'm shooting you back and I'll probably kill you. And
Right.
it like amplified this mini game and this tension that was really magical. And that was all the two players in that test talked about afterwards. They were like, it was so cool because like he deployed like this, and I was like, I want to deploy here, and I'm just gonna watch him. And then, these things were happening. I was like, do I take the shot? Oh, he's giving me, and they were baiting the other sniper teams with their characters to be like, I exposed I think it was Obi-Wan or whomever, and I was like, shoot me, come on, shoot me. And he wouldn't do it because I wanted to shoot him back. And if you can get that experience from game devs, playtesters, and especially just players in general, like you've hit gold, right? There's
Absolutely.
no question that you're not on the right path
Yeah.
because that's what really makes these games come alive and what makes players want to come back over and over again. Or at least I think it's what in our experience has always made us come back to these
Yeah.
games.
And
Certainly.
both of us, we're playing and you're like, do I pop the incognito? Because he's got a sniper
We did
team.
that so many
And
Yep.
it was just
times.
I
There
guess
it
I'm
is.
gonna dodge and standby and not pop my this is weird for my sniper team to not shoot the first round. This is super weird.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you definitely made him a much more entertaining unit. And for 40 points, you really can't go wrong
Yeah.
by throwing him in there. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at
Sure.
worst, if they get one shot a game, there's still an activation, that you can effectively use as a push. And they are a threat that your opponent has to really think about. And they can be a great backup plan when you drop Yoda to 3 wounds. And you're like, oh, I got to get rid of him. I guess I'm going to try to snipe him.
Yep.
And when you hit it, it feels great for you, less for your opponent. But it's a good story.
Yeah.
No, it's great. And one of the other things, which will be a good segue, we found really felt was the overwhelm keyword with their aim to kind of synergize with the suppression giving really helps. And now, especially segue into the AI changes where that faction before suppression didn't really do much to droids
Mhm.
overall. And
Yep.
now he was playing droids last night. He had to think about what he wanted to do because I was easily putting suppression out on my two sniper teams and making his AI possibly
Yeah.
trigger, right? So let's switch to AI now a little bit and talk about that. We had original, we'll call it Legion 1.0, with the rules where AI was a lot more restrictive, and then Legion 2.6 had a lot less restrictions AI. As long as you're in range of the commander, you were good. You guys kind of, in my mind, landed somewhere in the middle where you have more restrictions than the new one, but less than the old one. So you had a couple things. So how did you get there, and really what led to that decision for the team?
I mean, getting there is definitely more of a Pagani discussion, but I think in general, you know, the impetus behind it was we didn't like how first edition Legion, the AI rules really predicated list building, right? It basically told you that if you build this kind of cookie cutter built list, take a lot of B1s, have perfect order control, it doesn't really do anything. But when it did do something, it really sucked, right? Like if you didn't build appropriately, you were heavily punished for not building appropriately.
Hmm.
And well, we want there to be consequences and like player thought, we still want there to be choice. And it didn't really, to us, feel like there was a whole lot of choice. And that has a lot of different negative effects. It affects the player experience overall. It absolutely affects our ability to make cool things that are going to be useful to players because, if we make a great core unit or a new special forces unit or whatever, but it ruins your ability to get perfect order control with AI, you're just not going to take it because no matter how good it is, having your army non-functional is still worse, right? Like
Yep.
it's a difficult place to be in. And so, our original concept with the first version of AI changes in that 2.6 update was, for us, we talked about faction identity. One of the things that we always referenced for droids was that we wanted them to kind of feel like the undead army, where these necromancers, if you've ever played a classic fantasy war game, a lot of the times the necromancer is the glue that holds it all together. So if you can eliminate the necromancer, then the rest of the army kind of crumbles, falls apart, doesn't do as well. And that kind of became our guiding light for how we felt like we could make AI work. And so we tagged a lot of the stuff around the commanders. And our thought was if you can, when you play against droids, you want to dive for the commanders. And if you can get the commanders, the rest of the army is going to not be as efficient. So it's worth the risk to go after, like cut off the head, the rest of the body dies. It didn't really play out that way. And unfortunately, kind of, for us from an internal perspective, because it didn't do that, we watched the community feedback, we watched games and all this stuff, and we had wound up back to a point where AI again was a nothing burger. But instead of being a nothing burger, because if you just pre-built your list in a very specific way, you could ignore it. This was, you didn't even really have to think about it, which was cool from the list building side, because now players could do whatever they wanted, right? They could explore the faction a lot more. But we have spent a huge amount of rules and design space to make these AI rules and have them on all the cards. And, to say that this is a core part of this army's design and to not have it ever matter was not great either.
Yeah.
So, we went back into the tank and we said, okay, let's talk about this. Like, how would we fix it? And I think one of the really great things about doing this now is that we were free of the overall crushing weight of trying to second edition the entire game, right?
Hmm.
Like that a lot happened in the transition, and we knew we weren't going to get it all right, but we did our best to get everything right as much as possible. But the reality is that once you remove that and all of a sudden you can hyper focus on AI, it really gives you that space and freedom to explore and to say, okay, this didn't work, that didn't work. What do we want to do? And I think that's really where we came into our own and we were able to have real conversations and do some real exploration, knowing what had failed or been unsuccessful in the past into how we wanted to go forward. And what added on top of that discussion was we saw a lot of commentary from the community, especially about how playing against droids wasn't very fun because if you wanted to emphasize suppression, which was a big identity that we're trying to bake into and build more into the Empire, especially,
Hmm.
it was meaningless, right? Like an entire list archetype that we really wanted to promote in one of the main factions for the game just didn't do anything. And that didn't really feel great either, because as much as you can say there's a lot of design space devoted to AI, there's just as much design space devoted to suppression, if not more.
Right.
And
Almost
so with
certainly.
those problems before him, Pagani and the team came together and they made something beautiful.
Yeah.
The smile. Yeah, no, it
Um,
came out good. Good, Pagani.
yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes, right? I mean, I think it's also overshadowing a little bit just the heavy trooper archetype now exists, right? So
Mm.
that's we can start using, right? So that certainly exists now, and getting interaction out of things is great, right? I think Shick really covered it with the just before it was nothing, or before it was too much, then it was nothing. Now we're in the middle, and I think in the middle is a great place to be. And I think it also, yeah, it just I don't know, it was the right spot.
You,
Yeah.
you you give interesting. We found some cool, interesting things that make sense till you play it and it makes more sense. Like Grievous and Asajj has the unit lose AI. Droids
Yeah,
cannot be losing action from being suppressed. So now that unit can't be suppressed down and they don't have AI. So it really shows like
yep.
the leaders are leading that squad and it kind of has the best of both worlds. So that was a cool interaction with those two as well.
And it made me do something silly, like take lead by example on a droid commander, which
Yes, I
I
mean
was like, this feels wrong in so many
it,
ways, but it was nice
Shick
because
talked
it
about
helps.
yeah, Shick talked about how it interacts with suppression now, right? So now you have that. I mean, before you just didn't need that option. Now you have that option to
Mm.
help mitigate these things as well. So even if you're someone who's a little down on the AI changes, right? There are things in the game that all of the other factions have been using that you can now use as well to help mitigate this issue.
Yeah.
And we found that most games, AI still wasn't like backbreaking or anything for the Separatists, right? It was maybe 1 or 2 units would do it a game. And is that enough? Maybe, probably, right? Like and that's the hope is that it's still better than just being normal suppressed. You still get a action, right?
Right.
So the hope is that it is now somewhat relevant, but not completely driving list creation or anything like that,
Mhm.
whereas what it did before. So
Yeah, it
that's
definitely
the
it
hope
makes you
here.
play differently as a CIS player where you have to consider suppression now and you kind of have to watch your suppression a little bit more. If you're playing, what is it? Is it Cauldron? Is that what we played?
Yeah, Cauldron. We played Cauldron last.
Cauldron, not the best CIS starter for that one. Just so you guys are aware, if you're watching at home,
I had a good time with
CIS, you should flip that one. Just go ahead and flip it every time now.
He's a little salty. It's okay.
I always appreciate when we get live salt mining on our visits with you, like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it
We were
just
up
hits
until like two
different
in the
in the
morning playing
moment.
the game.
yeah.
So he's like fresh off of that last night.
It's the wound is still fresh, guys, but it's okay.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I think
so
overall
good.
the changes felt great though. They do feel deserved, even though as a CIS player you're like, oh, I liked my nothing burger from AI, but
I mean, it was all benefits, right?
yeah,
There
right,
really
It
wasn't any
was.
drawbacks.
yeah,
So, but I think like Pagani talked about, the thing that I really liked about the where we landed on the change is that the droids still have an advantage. They don't lose an action. It's just it might not be a very great action, which to me very really told that story of the droids, they function, they follow their programming. Sometimes you're just like, why would you, but why? Why did you do that? Why did you tank? Why did you drive in a circle? Like, why are you popping wheelies in the middle of the battle? It's like, well, because I don't know what to do. I'm just told me to dodge, so that's what I'm
yep,
doing. And I don't know, it kind of hit a little bit of that comedy value that you get from the Clone Wars watching the B1s, especially. There's so many great B1 lines
yeah,
that where they hate the job and they don't want to be a commander and they're left behind and they kind of flail around without their command and control. And you get to kind of experience that a little bit on the table where you're like, you're such an idiot. Why would you
yep,
do this to me? You know?
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna play obviously a lot more games with it, but the first game it felt good again. It was
yeah.
because I don't know how many games people have watched of ours, and like he will say famously on the channel, "I got some suppression of the droid, but it doesn't matter." That was like his number one thing. I'm like, yes,
Hmm.
I know my suppression I've worked to doesn't do anything to you really, unless I get to the panic level.
Right.
So it's nice seeing it
Yep.
impact the game again, especially with the new overwhelm on the sniper team.
Yeah.
The one question I forgot to ask to back up a second on the new Commandos ARC strike teams was you added a new heavy to the ARC troopers. So a question from the Discord was, is there a particular model from the new or the old they're supposed to use for that? And then also what led you to giving them a brand new heavy?
Yes.
Uh, the-
So they didn't have the equivalent of a saboteur in their box. They only had the sniper rifle. So that was the only one. We still wanted ARC troopers to have a heavy weapon option. So it is the same rifle as the sniper, but that rifle is actually configurable. So you can change kind of what type of ammunition essentially it's firing. And then the one listed for that heavy weapon is kind of a more like close range rapid fire situation versus a longer range precision rifle.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the minis effectively the exact same minis that they've always had. It's just do you have it on full auto or do you have it on single shot? And the strike
Mhm.
teams are using it on single shot, and the guy in the unit is obviously like hip fire and full blast, just going crazy.
So he's the guy at the paintball range, just letting it go.
Exactly. He's he's sitting
Yep.
there being like, you gave me a rifle, and we're going range two. I guess I'm just Rambo in it. He's just
Yep.
spraying and praying.
Yeah, no, looking forward to trying that one out. We also got a whole bunch of new upgrades to our existing armies. Each faction got roughly two, depending which one you're looking at. One of the cool ones, and I'm not even an Empire player, I like the probe droids because they play off of their other probe droid unit cards, and I thought that was a really cool space. So I'll let you talk just for a second. How did you get there with them? And like, I guess, kind of, did you mean for that to happen particularly? Was probe droid playing off probe droid, or did you mean it more just like any observation kind of play?
No, we definitely meant them to interact together. We see probe droids kind of in two major functions throughout the media. We see them sort of exploring Hoth off alone, and there's no one else there, and they're just scouting. And that's kind of the unit card, right? And then we also see them at like checkpoints hanging out with stormtroopers and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the unit upgrade one. And we really liked the idea of the droids kind of spotting for the unit, and then the other probe droid kind of downloading that data and disseminating it to the unit was
Hmm.
kind of the like idea as to what's going on there. And I think it got a really good feeling to how you're spending your observation tokens to gain aim tokens to do those kind of things to get more efficiency out of it. And we definitely like to talk a lot about how like Empire has suppression as an idea behind it. It also has a like how can we be efficient and cruel, right? So I don't know. I think that's kind of our first step into that route of like how can we take something and make it better by giving it back to the troops through almost bureaucracy. I don't know. That's kind of how I saw it, right?
Yeah, I saw someone
Yeah.
said, don't quote me, 15 or 16 probe droids now can go into lists max or something.
Oh,
You do
yeah, you can play a silly amount and it
that.
looks awesome.
Yeah,
Like
I
it
say
looks
we're
so
gonna have
cool.
to get some from some friends because we're not gonna have that many. But I want to get that on the channel one time, just to be like, probe droids
Yeah.
go, and you
All
just
the
see just floating droids moving across the battlefield.
It looks so cool. Like I'm really excited to see what people do with the hobby opportunities for all that kind of stuff, especially in like Stormtrooper Battalion and stuff.
Mm.
Like
yeah.
they're very, very cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I was like, I'm gonna end up with 6 probe droids now, and I was like, what am I gonna need 6 probe droids for? And I'm like, man, now do I need more probe droids?
We
And
need
then
12.
the one question, funny enough, we talked a little bit before we started this, was someone told me to ask you, Pagani, specifically about why do you like ARPS with melee so much? And you kind of gave us a little pre-thing before the interview, so I'm going to share it for
Sure.
everyone else. Is like, why did you mention that in the live stream that you really like ARPS with melee? Some people can't figure out why that's a good thing.
Yeah, so I think ARC Troopers are a very unique unit. They are very durable. Low profile is fantastic, right? They get a surge token with the duo as a cache. They can, of course, share surge tokens from Clone Trooper infantry and things like that. And then they can get the dodges and shares and all that kind of stuff. So the unit itself is very durable. It has red saves, it's great in cover, it does those things. All of that sounds like a unit that should stand and shoot, which it can certainly do that, right? It's got range for attacks and that kind of stuff. But if you're moving up the table with it to take a point, you can then fire from one point to another point with your ranged attacks. But somebody presumably is going to come and contest you on that point. And when you put a Jedi Guardian, you put Obi-Wan in there, anything like that, you become a very credible melee threat where you're rolling 6-ish black dice plus 2 red dice with Pierce 1. Like that'll blow out a Rebel Trooper unit, for example, like a naked Rebel Trooper unit that we see all the time in lists. That will defeat that in one attack action in melee. So even if you haven't shot them going in, you have that stuff. And if you can move up in cover, you're going to take very little to no casualties going in. I also play a lot of Yoda, so I also have the dodge tokens and search tokens from that. So that's certainly helping their durability as well. But you can also get like a dodge token from Padme with team leader, I think it's called squad team leader,
Strike
something
team
like that.
leader.
Strike team leader, that one. Yeah, so like that can get you a dodge token before any attacks or anything like that. So really, it's that I love their durability and they can move up and take points very aggressively. And then if they just decide to say, and this is something that happens to me a lot with ARC troopers, is like ARC troopers move up and take the point, and then they have to stay there, and they're range 2, and they can't do anything about that. So you can just kind of refuse to flank ARC troopers very easily, whereas you cannot do that to ARC troopers.
Hmm.
And sure, ARC troopers are not as aggressive as ARC troopers, but they get it done. It's enough, right? They're also cheaper, so you've got that going on. And that's just really what I like about them is I think they're hyper durable, well more durable than I think people give them credit for. And then in combat, they roll black dice. Like so that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
then
they are also
you have enough
handsome
range to
models.
affect the rest of the board once you get there,
Mhm.
so you can't be ignored either.
Yeah,
And I love that.
Mhm. You
that
didn't even
definitely
mention the
clears it
fact
up.
that they tar pit Jedi really well with Obi-Wan. That's
That's
the last.
true. That's true. They can go run and hug a Jedi with Obi-Wan, and they're immune to Pierce, and that'll take the Jedi 2 or 3 rounds to kill. So that'll be great.
It's nice to be able to tie them up with something
Yeah.
else, yeah. And again,
Mhm.
bringing more names onto the board. Like you could run 2 or 3 commanders and operatives and still have 2 or 3 more commanders operatives, but as upgrades in different people. So now you're seeing like, the whole entire like New Hope cast out there running around and
Mhm.
such, which is really cool.
I
Yeah,
also really love
we
the
really
Echo.
like that a lot.
Echo and Marksman is also my other favorite thing that people are
Echo
not
Marksman, yeah. No,
excited.
that one I get. I like that one a lot too, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
it's a
it's
smart
it's
camera.
been it's been really enjoyable and exciting to be able to bring more character opportunities to players. And I know we talked a lot about that when we first announced, 2.6 and then building up into the full second edition launch and things like that. But you can talk a lot about stuff and then you get to finally see it and you start to see like the fruition come and we're releasing more and more of these things. And not only does it get more characters on the table, we talked last time, I think, when we were on, when Cassian and those other characters, Kraken, and those had just come out. Um, Callus and I can't remember the Republic one, so I'll get crucified for that. But there was one
Rex.
there.
Rex.
Rex.
Rex, thank you. I was gonna say Ahsoka, but she had already come out before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like just the impact that those have on your list building choices and how they can dramatically shift what a unit does or what it can do, right? I think the Obi-Wan ARF discussion is so keen because it's a great example of how you can take a unit and because you take it with Obi-Wan, have this very unique build that does something that no other unit in your army can do. And how you utilize those pieces in addition to being able to, take multiples of a naked unit or a core unit or whatever. It really builds out a lot of opportunities with almost no additional, expansion to the game required, which is also very neat from a veteran player standpoint, right? Like
Right.
most veterans have these things already in their collections. And so being able to bring more value and more excitement to those things through these different options is also it's very satisfying, I think, from a development and a just kind of a game stewardship perspective. We like making new things, but
Yeah.
we also love making things that exist more exciting when it makes sense, and we can do that.
No, and I think out of all the new ones, they're all really cool and they have different things. But the one that I thought was one of the more unique ones was Chewbacca being three
Hmm.
health, which makes sense for Wookiees. But his ability, where there's the more minis, the better you are upgrading your dice, was really cool. And I got to use it last night, and it works. It really makes one Wookiee unit actually considerably better, like
Yeah. Oh,
That
yeah.
unit
considerably
is
better.
that unit is wild.
It
Like
is.
it
It
is
is. It is so
so
much
much
fun to
wrong.
play.
Yeah.
It is so 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 good.
Yeah, it was very frustrating to be like, I'm gonna shoot you, and you're like, I'm rolling 4 red in defense now, and I'm like, hey, that's rude.
You
Yeah,
got
you
to
really
really
need.
overwhelm them with weight of fire,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
get all the Z6s together and just unload. Yeah, I think the Chewbacca upgrade, especially combined with the points discounts, right? We talked a little bit about this on the stream, but it was a really excellent fix to see a unit of Wookiees, in a Republic or in a Rebel list. It doesn't, his existence makes that single unit much more desirable and much more exciting. It doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to see nothing but Wookiees in those lists, right? And
right,
I think that's a very healthy space to live in from a general faction standpoint, where spamming is a thing that you can do, and it's certainly a viable strategy, and it might work for what you want to do. But realistically, as we build more and more battle forces, as we do more and more of those things, when players want to play a skew or they really want to dive in deep on something like Rebel Veterans or whatever, ideally there's a battle force to go do that. And it really exemplifies that. It provides those limitations that let those things really shine. And if you're playing kind of the more generic, generalist army, you might take a couple of the same thing, but realistically, why you're doing that is because you really want to branch out and have a very diverse field of units and abilities and options on the table. Um, and so I like where we're going with that. I think that's a very exciting, future for the game and kind of looking forward to how we multiply these opportunities for players to really engage with their collections and to be able to, build different armies or even faction jump. Right now, battle forces allow you to very specifically narrow in on a niche within a faction that you might be interested in, but you don't care about all of Rebels. You just like Echo Base, you just like Bright Tree, you just like these things. They're kind of blueprints for being able to do that, to do the thing you like the most out of the faction and see success with it, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I think the Battle Force are great. Can't wait to see what else you guys are cooking up Battle Force wise. I know we've got Mando's coming out not too far away at all, which
Mhm.
is still so shocking that you
yeah,
guys did that in a great way. So that'll be brand new ones for us to
yeah.
play
And
with.
they pointed out in the comments, you guys just totally forgot to give us all of the information about the Mandos yesterday. I don't know
Yeah,
how you
we
get that.
certainly did.
I knew we left something out.
They're probably along with the Onaka Gang command cards, to be fair.
Ah, that's what happened.
Makes sense. Makes sense. One of the other interesting one I'm seeing a lot of chatter on all the groups is that the fifth brother in Riot Troopers is going to be so much fun, and I think that's going to be great because people, even with the Riot Troopers a little fix, some people still aren't happy with their potential for damage. Survivability and melee really good though, and now you have this beast who can ram up the board and
Spur.
spur them up the board as well. Is a really frightening thing for the person on the other side with some rebel troopers who are like, we're already squishy enough, guys. Let's not go near the spinny lightsaber. So I'm really excited to see what the community does with him and the riot troopers. I think he's going to find a really good spot with that.
I think so. That one and Asajj, I think are two of my favorites out of the new batch. Where
Yeah,
like
I
Asajj is
loved Asajj
canonical.
yesterday. That was
I
fun.
think it's so fun, and then seeing these riot troopers just go wild is a good time.
I'm just
So
picturing like him running super fast, and you see the riot troopers trying to keep up, right? They got their shields and
Yeah.
batons, and they're just sprinting after him. That's why they get the suppression. They're
Yeah.
tired.
they're like,
That's
oh
why I make
God,
it make sense in my head,
where
though.
is he going?
But my next question was going to be which ones of the new cards, battle forces, anything you showed off yesterday, what was your favorite one or two things that you guys showed off?
I
I
mean,
mean, Will already spoiled, or Pagani already spoiled it.
Yeah, he kind of beat me to it.
but my favorite thing actually is the A Pirate's Life Tour of Duty, where you can like steal vehicles from other factions at the end. It's like your reward. I think that's just hilarious
That
and
is so
so
cool.
fun. And I'm really looking forward to people creating hobby opportunities out of that stuff, right? Can we see a separatist AT-AT or ATST, right? Like I don't know. I just think it would be really fun to just kind of see how that goes. So
That is a very cool space. I love the new Paragon cards too to help them out because you don't always have a named unit
Yeah.
in Towards Duty unless you're paying the points for it. So now you have a way to get more command cards by earning them is a really cool idea too.
Yeah.
very excited about that as well. That was something that we hadn't really considered when we were developing original Tour of Duty. We were like, it's fine, you can play the generics. But obviously, I think a lot of the fun of Legion is picking your command cards and going through those things. So this
Mm.
kind of leaving that out in the previous version was something that we were very excited to remedy quickly. So
Yeah, like the Tours of Duty stuff was very exciting to be able to drop, three new story arcs. Each one provides some very cool narrative focus for your list. I love how radically different they are. Um, and they really let you as a player decide kind of what you want out of your Tours of Duty experience or your hobby experience or whatever. Whether you want to be kind of a notorious scoundrel and a pirate, do you want to really tell your own hero's journey? Or do you want to have like one of those, we got deployed to a backwater garrison and oh my gosh, now we're in the middle of the most important conflict that's ever been had. Um, so that stuff was really neat. I think, from a not Tours of Duty standpoint, um, there's just a lot of good stuff, but the new battle forces for me are the ones that really excite me. Like I love bikes. I've always loved, high mobile lists. So the wheel bikes, the Onaka gang and all of its like tanks that come roaring up on you. To me, those are just the story that those forces tell are very exciting, and watching or being able to play with them on the table, either seeing them across or using them is always very exciting. Um, so I can't wait to see more of that come out. Like I can't wait to have the opposing bark speeder, like oops, all bark speeders against the wheel bikes, and we get to play joust. Um, that's been a thing we've been talking about for a couple of years now since we started concepting these things. Is that was the ultimate goal? Is that you'll set up your wheel bike army, I'll set up my bark speeder army, and we will have a wonderful time.
We'll make sure to do that when they hit
Yeah.
for
Oh
sure.
heck yeah, it's so
Just the
good.
jousting battle report.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like the battle forces are always very exciting to me. And I really like these two. I think they're fun and they have a fun play style that I really enjoy. So those are probably the things that I was most excited about. I'm also, I anytime we get to go back and kind of improve the game experience in a way that feels like it's going to be very meaningful and have a lot of impact, that's good because Pagani has been in this industry for a long time. We talk about this a lot, but we come from an age where that wasn't the case. When we started, playing these games, and even when I started working in the industry, like the idea of being able to dynamically rebalance or update something outside of a full edition change, which was a huge, a huge undertaking and required a whole bunch of thought, and you got one chance, you got one shot, and if you vomited mom's spaghetti, you didn't get another one until like 5 years later, you
I was
know.
hearing the lyrics in my head before
Yeah,
you said it, so
exactly.
I'm
Blame
glad you
me.
said it out loud.
Um, like I don't know, it's a pretty exciting time to be able to do that, to like live in kind of an ecosystem and to have the opportunity to say we missed the mark. Let's go back in about a year, right? From when we really started this stuff, and even less from a launch opportunity standpoint. The second edition really only launched in fall of last year. So we're like 6 months away from it. But of course, the pre-release of those rules helped us more rapidly like adjust to this because we got to see more game feedback than we would have otherwise. And to just be able to go back and say, okay, we're unhappy with these two things. We don't like where strike teams are sitting. We're not really sold on the sniper like interactions and AI, which is a huge component of this game experience because it's one of the four factions' core identities, is not doing it for us. Let's fix it, right? And we can do that. And then we do it. And of course, the big payoff is when you implement those changes and you see positive reception, you see players excited about it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this seems so much better." And you generate that more positive momentum rather than being in a situation where it's like, "Well, I wish we'd done it differently. Maybe in 4 years we'll get the chance," right? Um, that is, it's a very different world, and it's something that we argue about a lot. Should we make changes? Should we not? Is this a new edition thing? Is this not a new edition thing? So we're navigating it as something that is kind of unknown, and you can do it wrong, right? I think it's like having any kind of significant power is that you can use it. You can wind up using it for positive effect, or you can misuse it and have negative effect. But yeah, I think the AI changes for me, just the fact we were able to do it and the positive impact it has and what it means for the game going forward and our ability to continue to make it the best, most enjoyable thing it can be is pretty exciting. It's very fun to be able to roll that out and to, you know, see the kind of the discourse about how droids are maybe too oppressive and maybe not fair to play against, and how are you going to fix this? You just have to mess with all the points, but the internal balance is really good, but it's not fair outside of it. And to maybe proffer a solution that players weren't expecting, or that elegantly, hopefully elegantly solves some of those issues, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Mhm.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
that is awesome. Yeah. Well, I just want to give you guys a heads up. In about, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks, we're kicking off the Summer Cup. So, hopefully this is the updates for the Summer Cup. But if you surprise us, we'll just,
We're not gonna be mad if you surprise us.
not at
I
all.
just I just need to know like the exact date. If you just send me that, we'll make sure that, you know,
About a week later, you change
72
something.
hours after the first game, we'll change everything. It'll be fine.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
We
I
got to
like the
keep up the
idea.
tradition, you know?
At this
Yeah,
point, we kind of have to. Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. Well, anything else from Will or Will before we let you go? I don't want to keep your time too much today.
Thank you guys, right? Running this kind of
Mhm.
stuff, it's a lot of work, and you guys put a lot of effort in that, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
100%.
Thank you guys for making the game
Yeah,
and keep
yeah,
it going. And with Mando's coming, it's just the popularity
yeah.
and the interest has been peaking. We see it all the time, so that's great.
We got a lot of locals who are like, I wasn't super interested, but you guys have Mandos coming, so how do you play this game? And we're like, don't worry, we
Perfect.
have a 101 for that.
Exactly. It's gonna be an exciting time. I think Mandalorians are really gonna bring in a lot of new players, and they've obviously generated a lot of interest, and they're just fun. I mean, they're just a fun way to experience the Star Wars galaxy that I don't think many players have had the opportunity to do throughout all of the different media. There's not a lot of truly customizable experiences with Star Wars because so much of the experiences around the known characters and
Mhm.
and interacting with the Skywalker saga and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it was definitely a very unique opportunity to suddenly be like, oh, we know there are a bunch of Mandalorian sects and clans hidden all over the galaxy, so you know, go crazy because we don't know, right? We
Right,
know, but we don't know, and
right.
it's very rare in the Star Wars galaxy where that is a true statement.
Yeah. gonna be fun seeing all the hobby and the community does with those too. I'm really excited.
I was gonna say
It's
you
gonna
guys
be
are a little rude in that we are gonna have to paint like 4 boxes of Mandos each in like a week so that we can get them on the channel for people to watch. You guys got to take our feelings into consideration here, please.
I'm fine
you
with
know,
it. It's good.
I heard. I think that's what the kids say.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining
Yeah.
us, and I'm sure we'll see you again here soon. So you guys have a great night.
Yep. See ya.
Absolutely, you guys
Good
too.
night.
Cheers.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.